She's the one, a masterpiece. Close to the gods. She's the one, a masterpiece.
My name is Kat Borlongan, and I am the Chief Impact Officer at Content Square. In a previous life, not too long ago, actually, I was also the director of the French Tech Mission and currently sit on the board of the European Innovation Council, which is a 10 billion fund entirely dedicated to deep tech. Content Square is a UX analytics company that optimizes web performance and make sure that, whether it's for optimizing checkout in the middle of a sale or optimizing a fundraising campaign in the middle of a war, that you get from A to B as quickly as possible. Well, I guess that answer is never really going to be the same depending on which company you speak to. So Content Square is a B2B company. They are in a vertical that is not traditionally associated with impact, so not in climate, not in education, not in health. And they've been around for about 9-10 years now, since and didn't start off originally as a very impact-focused company, but now they really want to be, and it's something that's really important, not just for today, but for the years to come. And so my goal, in a single sentence, is to transform Content Square, alongside everybody, of course, into a mission-driven company in under 3 years. That breaks down into many different things depending on how you look at it. When you want to become a mission-driven company, it's not just your branding that changes, it's your product and your roadmap. You start thinking about the way that you acquire, that you plan, that you build, how you partner, right? And it also affects what we call responsibility and accountability. So overall, like the practices and policies in the company, whether those are anti-slavery policies, because we're working on that right now, but yes, that too. But environmental policies, how we do procurement, how we handle diversity and inclusion, and so on. And it also affects how we give. So whether that is through philanthropy, whether it's direct donations, match gifting, or through our foundation, for example, and at the heart of that, eventually, and maybe a little before, it affects who we are, our identity, whether that's at a legal basis, whether those are our bylaws, our culture, or yes, eventually our brand. I wouldn't say all companies need an impact officer. I would say the companies that absolutely 100% need an impact officer are the ones that are going in for the long run, right? Like if you are looking for a quick exit in 1 or 2 or 3 years, a chief impact officer feels like a nice to have for the business, unless of course it's something that you and your co-founders are very strongly committed to. But the real business case here is the fact that you can't take on moral debt as a company. You can take technical debt, you can take financial debt, and I'm sure that you know very well, but you can't take moral debt. You can't decide to fix DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion issues later on if you've messed up early in your development. You can't decide to win back the trust of your consumers or of your clients if you have broken it through iffy ethical practices when it comes to data protection and so on. You can't fix everything that you damaged in the past when it comes to, let's say, your supply chain and to the environment. And so if you're looking, you're looking to build in the long run, that's super important. These topics are actually enormously complex, and I'm kind of learning that every day. It's like a bit of like a Russian doll, or he thinks he's more complex than. Anyway, so whether that's something that seems simple, like diversity and inclusion, which seems simple because sometimes people feel like, oh yes, it's in our values, like inclusion is in our values, so that should be fine. It's completely different when you're operating in over 10 different geographies like we are at Content Square, and you have to understand the different regulations, the different regional needs, the way that identities intersect and combine in completely different ways. We talk about the environment, for example, that one's tough as well, with standards that are always changing, or standards that are kind of if completely exist, and entire offset market that sometimes resembles crypto in the sense that things aren't as clear cut as they should be. So there's definitely you're constantly upskilling and you're constantly learning, and that's not bandwidth that many other C-levels have. And the second thing is that at the end of the day, impact is really about operational excellence. You're working on a lot of different topics that cut across almost every single function. I'll give you a quick example. If you are, for example, planning to roll out, let's say, a program for gender equity, and you want to increase, let's say, the pipeline of women in your team, you want to, level salaries and so on, you're going to need, your HR team to sort of understand what the context is and to roll this out. You're going to need analytics. You need your people analytics team to be able to model all of this. You're going to need your finance team to be able to see what's the impact of, say, increasing your, shortlisted candidates, women by 20%, what the impact that's going to be on the product roadmap and say like sales targets and so on. And then you're also going to have to roll it out with the support of all of the execs and the entire leadership team. And, it's really a team effort. And these are things that take a lot of time. They take a lot of love, really. And these are things that I think really deserve C-level bandwidth. Been a chief impact officer for about 6 months. I would say my top initiative right now is hiring, to be honest. We're trying to build out a proper impact team. There are about 10 of us today, and hopefully by the end of the year, there will be 20. We're really getting warmed up or covers anything that has to do with the foundations. So just, so it's maybe clear for everyone, since it's very different for people who work on this space. The 4 things that are under my purview are diversity and inclusion, digital accessibility, the environment, and digital trust. Each of those 4 are completely cross-functional. There's only one function that we own completely, and that's philanthropy. So essentially giving and civic engagement. So right now, a lot of what we're doing is really focusing on building the operational foundations for that, whether that's the carbon footprint that we're running through so many third-party experts to ensure that it's really solid, since I'm sure a lot of you have discovered this. Carbon footprint measurement for B2B SaaS can be a little strange sometimes. Whether that is trying to gather as like very granular people analytics, specifically on diversity and inclusion, but to start with on gender, and whether that is ensuring that we are up to the best and strongest standards when it comes to digital accessibility. So we're investing a lot in that. And then of course, starting to run different smaller pilots internally for now, but I'm not gonna blow any surprises before we're done. ESG isn't under my purview. I think that's probably the quickest way to do it, but ESG feels a little limited. It's funny, we actually had a really interesting meeting the other day with some bankers who were telling us that in terms of one day when we become a public company, there's usually a clear separation between CSR, philanthropy, and sustainability, right? So sustainability, and you have everything under ESG. I have all 3, and on top of that, I have something which a lot of ESG people don't have, which is innovation. When we think, for example, of inclusion, or when we think of the environment, we just tend to think of being responsible, right? Like doing the right thing, walking the talk, and that sort of thing. But at Content Square, we're doing more than that. We're also trying to innovate when it comes to these topics. So, when it comes to digital accessibility, we have an entire product unit in the product house that is entirely dedicated to, finding the best solutions to empower our clients to create more accessible experiences for people of all abilities. Also starting a lot of research and investment into sustainable web design. And how that can help our clients also lower the carbon footprint of their website. So I think that's probably the one difference.